Progress is one of the most misunderstood ideas in modern life. Most people think they know what it looks like. Very few recognize it when it actually happens. This channel, English Rise, was created for those who want to slow down their thinking, sharpen their English, and develop inner clarity at the same time. Here, language is not rushed, and growth is not romanticized. If you are using these videos to train your English while reflecting on your own life, you are exactly where you should be. Now let's talk about progress, the real kind. Part 1. Why progress rarely feels like progress. Progress is quiet. That is the first truth most people resist. Real progress does not announce itself. It does not feel dramatic. It does not create instant relief. Most of the time, progress feels like repetition. Doing the same thing again, with slightly more awareness, slightly more control. This is why many people abandon it. They expect change to feel rewarding. Instead, it feels neutral. And neutrality is easily mistaken for stagnation. Progress often looks like nothing is happening until suddenly, something has changed. Part 2. The gap between effort and evidence. One of the hardest psychological gaps to tolerate is the space between effort and visible results. You study, but fluency doesn't appear. You train, but strength grows slowly. You discipline yourself, but life stays the same. This gap creates doubt. The mind begins to ask dangerous questions. Is this working? Am I wasting time? Should I stop? Progress requires faith without fantasy. Not blind optimism, but trust in process. Those who quit do so inside this gap. Those who continue cross it quietly. Part 3. Why consistency is more important than intensity. Intensity feels productive. Consistency creates transformation. Anyone can push hard for a week. Few can show up calmly for months. Progress is not built through heroic effort. It is built through reliable behavior. Consistency removes negotiation. It turns effort into routine. Routine into identity. This is why progress accelerates later. Not because you try harder, but because resistance decreases. Part 4. The psychological cost of comparing progress. Comparison distorts perception. You only see outcomes, never the process. Someone else's success looks fast because you didn't witness their repetitions. When you compare, your own progress feels insufficient. This creates impatience. Impatience breaks consistency. Progress requires privacy, quiet effort, minimal comparison. You don't need to look ahead. You need to stay aligned. Part 5. Why progress feels slow right before it compounds. Progress compounds invisibly. Early effort builds structure. Late effort builds momentum. Most people quit during the structural phase. They mistake foundation building for inefficiency. But once structure is solid, returns accelerate. This is true for skills, for discipline, for learning English. What feels slow today may be preparing speed tomorrow. Part 6. The difference between movement and progress. Movement feels active. Progress creates direction. You can stay busy without moving forward. Progress requires alignment between goals, habits, identity. When these are misaligned, effort leaks. Progress is less about doing more and more about doing what matters. Clarity reduces wasted energy. Part 7. Why progress requires tolerating boredom. Boredom is not a problem. It is a test. Repetition without novelty reveals commitment. Most people seek stimulation. Progress requires stability. This is why long-form learning works. Why calm repetition builds mastery. If you can stay present without constant excitement, you are already progressing. Part 8. How progress changes your identity before your life. Identity shifts first. You become more disciplined before life looks different. You become calmer before circumstances improve. This internal change often goes unnoticed, but it alters decisions, and decisions shape outcomes. Progress starts internally, long before it becomes visible externally. Part 9. Why quitting feels relieving, and why it is dangerous. Quitting removes tension. It provides immediate comfort. But comfort is not resolution. Quitting resets the cycle. You feel relief, then regret, then stagnation. Progress requires staying through discomfort. Relief is temporary. Growth is cumulative. Part 10. The quiet moment you realize you've been progressing. There is no celebration. One day you simply react differently. You stay calmer. You hesitate less. You recover faster. And you realize progress was happening while you doubted it. This realization is not emotional. It is stabilizing. Part 11. Why progress often feels like you are falling behind. One of the most confusing sensations during real progress is the feeling of regression. As awareness increases, your standards rise. You notice more mistakes, more gaps, more imperfections. This does not mean you are getting worse. It means your perception is sharpening. Beginners feel confident because they don't see what they don't know. Progress removes that illusion. This is why growth often feels discouraging. You are closer to reality. Understanding this prevents self-sabotage. Part 12. The role of self-doubt in long-term progress. Self-doubt is not the enemy. Unchecked self-doubt is. A healthy amount of doubt keeps you precise. It encourages reflection, adjustment, correction. The problem arises when doubt becomes a reason to stop. Progress requires learning how to move while uncertain. Certainty comes later. Movement comes first. Part 13. Why progress requires you to disappoint your old self. Your past identity will resist your future behavior. Old habits expect familiarity. Progress disrupts comfort. This creates internal conflict. You feel like you are betraying who you used to be. In reality, you are honoring who you are becoming. Letting go of the old self is not disrespect. It is evolution. Part 14. The invisible structures that support progress. Progress is supported by systems you don't see. Sleep, environment, routine, attention. Neglect these and progress collapses silently. Most people focus on visible effort and ignore invisible structure. Structure determines sustainability. Strong foundations make progress resilient. Part 15. Why progress feels slower. The more serious you become. Casual effort feels light. Serious effort feels heavy. Because stakes increase. You care more. You invest more attention. This seriousness slows perception of time, but it increases quality. Progress slows in appearance but deepens in substance. Depth lasts longer than speed. Part 16. How progress trains patience without asking permission. Patience is not taught. It is demanded. Progress forces you to wait without reassurance. No applause, no guarantees. This waiting strengthens emotional endurance. Few skills are more valuable. Patience learned through progress transfers to every area of life. Part 17. Why most people abandon progress too early. Not because they are weak, Because they misread signals. They expect motivation. They feel neutrality. They assume failure. But neutrality is normal. Progress is often boring. Those who accept this outlast. Those who seek excitement. Part 18. How progress changes your relationship with failure. Failure stops being catastrophic. It becomes diagnostic. You fail. You adjust. You continue. This cycle reduces fear. Progress replaces emotional drama with practical iteration. Calm repetition wins. Part 19. Why progress requires silence. Progress grows in quiet. Noise interrupts feedback. Constant opinion creates confusion. Silence allows calibration. You don't need constant input. You need consistency. Progress respects privacy. Part 20. The moment progress becomes unstoppable. Progress becomes unstoppable when identity aligns with behavior. You stop asking if you should continue. Continuing becomes default. At this point, progress no longer depends on motivation. It depends on who you are. Part 21. Why real progress feels uncomfortable for a long time. Real progress challenges identity. When you start changing for real, your environment does not immediately respond. People still treat you the same. Life still looks similar. This creates tension. You are no longer who you were, but you are not yet who you are becoming. This in-between state is uncomfortable. Many people interpret this discomfort as a sign that something is wrong, but it is actually a sign of transition. Progress stretches you before it stabilizes you. If you can tolerate this phase, most people cannot stop you. Part 22. The quiet discipline that sustains progress. Progress is not sustained by inspiration. It is sustained by quiet discipline. The discipline to repeat even when nothing feels rewarding. The discipline to show up without emotional reinforcement. This discipline is invisible. No one applauds it. But it compounds. Over time, this quiet discipline builds reliability, and reliability builds results. Part 23. Why progress does not need to be felt to be real. Modern culture teaches that change must feel exciting, but progress often feels flat. Emotion is not a reliable indicator. Some of the most important changes happen beneath awareness. You speak differently. You react differently. You think more clearly. Only later do you realize that you have changed. Progress works silently. Part 24. How progress trains your mind for long-term thinking. Progress forces you to think beyond immediate comfort. You begin to value consistency over intensity. You stop asking, "What do I feel like doing?" and start asking, "What supports my future self?" This shift is subtle, but powerful. Long-term thinking is one of the rarest mental skills, and progress trains it naturally. Part 25. The difference between wanting change and becoming change. Wanting change is emotional. Becoming change is behavioral. Most people stay in desire. Few move into execution. Progress begins when behavior no longer depends on mood. At that point, change stops being a wish. It becomes a pattern. Patterns create identity. Identity creates outcomes. Part 26. Why progress feels lonely, and why that is normal. As you progress, you may feel slightly disconnected, not superior, different. Your priorities shift. Your tolerance for noise decreases. This can feel isolating, but this solitude is not punishment. It is alignment. You are leaving shared stagnation and entering personal responsibility. Part 27. How progress and learning English connect. Learning English is a clear example of real progress. At first, nothing seems to stick. Then, slowly, you understand more without effort. This mirrors life. Progress happens before confidence arrives. By listening consistently, even when it feels slow, you are training patience. And patience is progress. Part 28. The moment you stop doubting the process. There is a moment when doubt loses power. Not because doubt disappears, but because you continue anyway. At that point, progress is no longer fragile. It is anchored. And from there, results are only a matter of time. The truth about progress is that it rarely feels like progress while it is happening. It feels repetitive, quiet, sometimes uncomfortable. But beneath that surface, something stable is forming. Progress is not about speed. It is about direction. And direction, maintained long enough, changes everything. As you continue training your English here, remember that every calm repetition is also progress. This channel exists for those who value depth, discipline, and long-term mastery. If this kind of reflective English helps you grow, consider subscribing to English Rise and continuing this journey with us. Thank you for staying until the end. Your time matters. We'll see you in the next video.